Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here on a Sunday morning. I was thinking what to talk about today. Most often people ask me about nutrition and their greatest concern is the weight, regardless of the fact that they might have a really bad condition or number of conditions that pile up. They are concerned, first of all, about that belly fat or the fact that they don't have no energy, and they realize and they know very well that the problem is most probably the nutrition. So today I would like to give you a little bit of theory that relates to what we are inside of our body, and then I would like to talk about the three types of people when it comes to nutrition and why diets don't work, because diets are applied or directed to all of us without considering our internal differences. So what are those internal differences? In 1956, Dr. Roger Williams published a book called Biochemical Individuality. That book was extremely interesting in the sense that it showed that we have organs different in size, shape, positioning in the body, location, capacity of working, that are changing the approach to the person. Very, very interesting. Dr. Roger Williams was a famous biochemist. Other specialists, and especially those who are doing a lot of autopsies, also came up with the information that yes, internally we are quite different and our organs have different capacity for functioning. Later on, it turned out that the gastric juices, the fluids in the body have a slight difference from human to human, which means the processes for which we know from the theory are going in a slightly different way in every human being. So we know the general theory, and all the diets that we see in that huge business, which is billions of dollars, are targeted people in general without considering the evaluation of their internal needs, internal differences, because the way we're different outside, the same way we have slight difference inside, and regardless of the fact that they're very tiny, sometimes they are very important, substantial, and make a huge difference in how we perceive the environment, including through nutrition. Because everything that is around us is information, and everything that goes through our mouth into the body is as well information. So I would like also to mention Weston Price. Why to mention Weston Price? He was a dentist, he was a scientist, he has been in contact with 16 different cultures around the world. This is again in the beginning of last centuries, for over 36 years. And he discovered that different tribes or different populations of people have different nutritional habits. And those who follow the nutritional habits for centuries, the nutritional habits of their ancestors, they do not carry any diseases. That was very interesting. Also, the bony structure of their face was optimum for assimilating and digestion and chewing of the food in the mouth. You know, the carbohydrates starts assimilation in the mouth and the proteins in the stomach. So for that, we need the right proportion of bones and consecutively muscle work in order to start processing the food in the right way, so the body later on can absorb it. Dr. Weston Price also then concluded that because in the Western world we are so mixed, we don't necessarily know our genetic predisposition for our nutrition habits, the right nutrition habits. He divided people into three major types, for which I would like to talk today. But in order to know which major nutritional type you are, you have to be assessed very carefully, and whoever assesses you has to also listen to you, not only considering what answers you give in a questionnaire, but also listens to you. And I'm going to give you an example. The other day I was talking to a client. It's a new client, and I see that all the damages the centroid did on her body. She was taking that thyroid pill for many years. Now she has circulation problems, cardiovascular problems, and etc. And I said to her, okay, we should work on that, but I need to assess you what metabolic type you are. And she said, I know how I feel the best when I eat once a day. I said, oh, great. That means a very big intermittent fasting window. I still would like to do the assessment to understand you better, but we have to talk about that one meal per day, because she knows that it works for her very well, but she doesn't do it very often. And it turned out that in the family, of course, other people have different habits, and I ended up talking to her husband to ask him, how could you accommodate her so she can achieve her goals and you are not disturbed? And he was very cooperative, and that's very nice to see. He says, in the morning while she's in the shower, I will be having a quick breakfast, and that works great with me. During the day we'll have one meal together, and at night I will offer her vegetable juice with some oil inside, and if she wants to get it, is that okay? I said, yes, perfectly okay. It's gonna work very well this way. So yes, even if you know what works for you the best, you still have to be assessed on your metabolic type, because also the metabolic type relates to your body structure, body composition, and also the healthier you become, the more changes and tweaks we have to use in your metabolic typing, because the body inside changes. For instance, I mentioned in the beginning that some of us have different composition inside of our organs. For instance, if you hydrate more, that will change the composition of the blood. That means you become, let's say, healthier, because we work towards that. We work towards your blood to have more water, and to change your body to have more water, and the blood to change its composition. Then every 2 months we need to reassess your body type and to adjust the nutrition. So what are the three body types, three metabolic types? I will start with the most common type for the northern people, and this is the protein type. Because of the weather and because of the long winter, living up north, even if you're not a person who's born north, you need to consume more fat, more protein. I'm not saying, every time I underline this, to stuff yourself with those, but I'm saying that you have to rethink of your nutritional habits. So the protein type means that you should consume about 45% of protein and 20% of oils and fats. Also, the protein types prefers meats with high purines. What are meats with high purines? Organ meats. And some types of fish have high purines. Purines are fats, so that means fatty meats in small amounts, but still it should be 45 or more, or a little bit less. As I said, we have to make sure that we tailor this to the person's needs. Part of your plate. The other parts are 20% oils and nuts or fats. These are almost the same for every type. Some people prefer, let's say, walnuts. Some people prefer almonds, but still the fat. Yesterday I was talking about grouping of the foods and food families and how they, what are the formulas for the amino acids, or with the plants, taxonomy. I was mentioning this word about what type of plants these are, what families these are, and how we combine them with the food. So the carbohydrates in this group are about 35% or less, or a little bit more. And which carbohydrates? If you're protein type, you need to eat low glycemic index carbohydrates, which are plants above the ground. Mostly the plants above the ground have low glycemic index. What does that mean? That they are slower on to get into the blood flow to trigger your blood sugar. That's it. So caution for the protein type: sugar or sugar O's, everything that finishes in OSE, fructose, and others like that. There are more than 20 types of sugar that finish in O's. They are very damaging because they're very difficult to absorb from people with protein type of nutrition. That's why we can't consume them. Sports drinks. Something I would like to say about drinks is very often they're with sweeteners. I personally prefer to suggest to people, if they want to have something sweet, to have something with natural sugar, or even the white sugar is better, because the sweeteners are bypassing the pancreas and go straight into the brain, and the damage on the brain is enormous. This way, through the pancreas, will be less damage to the brain and the immune system as a whole. So think about it. Think about the desserts. Protein type does not need desserts. Or use low glycemic index fruits. Never mind, I don't suggest the fruits to be eaten on top of food, for the reason that fruit doesn't like to stay in the stomach for a long time, because it ferments and it causes problems with the digestion. Fruits supposed to be first, but always accompanied with something like nuts or something else which is fat or protein. A little bit when you want to eat fruit. I'm not saying, I just said that the fruits don't like to be with other food in the stomach on top of it, because when you eat, everything layers up in the stomach. It's not like a washing machine, that it turns and it mixes eventually when the gastric juices are secreting, but otherwise initially the food is in layers in the stomach. Sport bars for people with protein type? No, 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 don't do that. Protein bars have very little protein. They are actually carb bars. You have 100 gram bar or 70-gram bar, which is 20 gram of protein, and they call it a protein bar. No, this is a carbohydrate bar. And for you who are protein type, do not do that. It's a mistake. It's a huge mistake. Okay. So, what kind of foods the protein type is eating? Fatty dairy. Yesterday I was mentioning that the goat milk is the best for human beings. In the protein type, they can tolerate more cow milk or even milk from buffalo. Or yogurt from buffalo, which are very, very fatty. Of course, in small amounts. I spoke about the meat, dark meat or meat with high purines, rich in fat, oily fish like salmon, and low glycemic carbs like over the ground carbs, which are the leafy vegetables, some peppers, some tomatoes, tomatoes, zucchini, cucumbers. Those are part of the nightshade vegetables, and I would suggest you to peel them and take away the seeds. As well as eggplants are the same from the nightshades. Then we have the carbotype. The carbotype usually is associated with people who are ectomorphs, tall and slimmer. Not necessary, but mostly. That's why the assessment and the conversation with the person is very much needed. So they have 70% of carbohydrates, because they assimilate the carbohydrates slower. That does not trigger their blood sugar. That's why they can afford to eat more. And they can afford to eat more from the below ground vegetables, which are parsnip, carrots, all these, even potatoes, below the ground. They can allow themselves to eat above ground too. They are doing very well on that, just because they do well on carbs. What can you do? And I envy them. And the meats, they are better on white meats, like the white of the chicken, the white meat of the chicken, fishes which are not fatty fish, low-fat dairy. The goat milk would work very well for them, like the sheep milk would work for the protein type better because it's more fatty. And they can have more fruits, variety of fruits. In the protein type, the fruit would be peeled green apple, some berries, grapefruit maybe, but not very big variety of fruit. The fruit should not be sweet. Papaya is not a very sweet fruit as well. So what do they have to be careful with? Fatty foods. They don't agree with them. It's all about the gastric juices. You know, I mentioned in the beginning that we have different combination of gastric juices, and in one anatomy book I read that the stomach shape can be up to and over 20 types of stomach shape. The person who did dissection of people in order to write the anatomy book, and then they discovered also that the gastric juices are more than 100,000 combinations of different type of species in the organism, different type of juices and content. So the carbotype people are very should be cautioned with junk food. They do not assimilate that well, like the protein type food can manage better with junk food. I'm not saying that we have to eat junk food, no. I'm just saying that it's worse for them comparing to the protein type. And low quality carbs as well, yeah, they should caution that. Low quality carbs are sweetened yogurts, low fat but sweetened, or modified to the point that we don't know if we eat yogurt or something else. The mixed type is a type between the carb type and the protein type. That's the most difficult type to define, and I suggest you to work with a specialist to find out what kind of foods, how to mix. There are two charts for protein and for carb type, and how to mix both charts so it works for you. Yes, there are people who are very much balanced, and their ratio is 50% of carbohydrates, 20% or even 10% of fat, and the other 40% of protein. So that's for them. And also I would like to mention to you about some responses to too much carbohydrates, because in our society this is the big problem. We don't necessarily overeat so much on meat, because the body has very good regulations when it comes to fat, to tell you enough, I can't take it anymore. But when we push into sugar, combined with fat, more fat can go in and a lot of sugar can go in, or combined with salt, it's very easy. And there are immediate and long-term responses from the body when we do that. So which are the immediate responses? The immediate response could be headache. Very often people get headaches because they have the wrong nutrition. And headache sometimes is accompanied with anxiety, the feel of not satisfied, getting hungry again very quickly after they ate. Then if we eat the wrong nutrition, we can crave fat or protein. That means we didn't eat enough of those, we ate too much carbs, and here you go, you have cravings with fat and protein. Then we get a jumpy mind, difficulty focusing, concentrating, difficulty staying up, being tired, and wired, and jittery and nervous, that nervous energy, high and low. So these are some of the short-term responses while eating too much carbohydrates. Which are the long-term responses of eating too much carbohydrates? These are exaggerated stress response, like depression, pimples, constipation, toxicity in the body, insulin resistance, of course, for many people, and diabetes, headache, neck and shoulder pain. The reason we get headaches in this case is that fluids, the cerebrospinal fluid that is part of the lymphatic system that cleans the brain, has trouble going and doing its job. What happens is the brain is not maintained well, and we can get headache. Saying that, I would like also to mention that there are hundreds of reasons you can get a headache, but this could be one of the reasons. Low back pain. Why we get low back pain when we eat wrong? Because when the colon suffers and changes from inside, then you have a muscular change of the tension release in the pelvic floor, around the hip area, and then that muscle rearrangement due to inflamed organs like the colon can cause a lower back pain because it can pull different muscles that are attached to the lower back. Many people, when they fix their nutrition, they find out that their lower back pain is just gone. Then we have adrenal stress, not able to sleep, that jittery or nervousness, mood type of feeling also reflects on the adrenal glands. So this is a long-term effect as well. And then you have autonomic dysregulation. This is of the entire autonomic nervous system. I've mentioned before, the autonomic nervous system divides into sympathetic and parasympathetic. With our approach to people when we heal them, or they have to lose weight, or whatever the reason is, our goal is always to keep those balanced. Once one is up higher than the other, we have a disbalanced or autonomic dysregulation, as we call it. The sympathetic nervous system is the one that breaks down tissue, and no, it doesn't break down fatty tissue, it breaks down the muscles. And this is the bad thing, because muscles are a resource for the immune system when it needs them. It should be broken down only when you're sick and the immune system needs to pull energy from them. And the parasympathetic system is the one that is building up tissue. So both has to be always in balance. If your parasympathetic system is too high, that means that you start getting sluggish, slow, and again, the other result is you cannot concentrate or perform in your work or duties. And then you have immunosuppression. The too much carbohydrates can lead to immunosuppression. Why? Because the immune system works overtime in order to compensate for those amounts of carbohydrates we take. So this is very, very important. What are the short-term responses of taking too much of protein or fat? First of all is this lethargic feeling, sleepy, dull, or depressed mood. If you experience that after you eating, you understand that you ate too much of the fat and protein. You can take right away a little bit of fruit juice, and that can balance you quickly. Not coffee, no, fruit juice. You need carbohydrates in order to balance your blood sugar, because obviously your blood sugar went too low. That's why. Mentally sluggishness and slow overall. Heavy gut means constipated. Yes, the protein and the fats can lead to constipation if they're too much. Feel full but still hungry. That's why people eat desserts. As I suggested, a little bit of juice will be just fine, or below ground veggies, potatoes if you wish, also can balance you out. Craving of sweets if you eat too much fat and protein, and craving of coffee and tea, because those will coffee usually comes with sugar, will balance the blood sugar, or coffee will just spike us and excite us, but you always pay a price for that. Due to dehydration and due to this cycle up and down of your blood sugar that the coffee causes in the body, and the black tea just as well. What are the long-term responses for eating too much fat or too much protein? It's again autonomic dysfunction. We have autonomic dysregulation for the carbohydrates. Now we have autonomic dysfunction. We have depression, obesity. Meanwhile, why obesity is such a big problem? When I work with the clients, I try to address, sometimes indirectly, because people get offended, the weight. Why is this important? The weight is an enormous burden on the immune system. The weight also around the organs suppresses their work and makes them stagnate. The weight also loads overly our joints. When the body is growing, we adapt slowly with our joints, tendons, muscles to the size of the body. When we put on a lot of weight, we are not adapted, and the joints start carrying all of a sudden a lot of weight, more than they are made for, more than they can carry. And yes, they suffer. You know that very often when we have a joint problem, the doctors even address the body weight. Toxicity, yes, toxicity can occur of too much of protein. How does that occur? When we feed the wrong species in the gut, they release toxic gas. And that is one of the ways the toxicity that occurs in the body. Low energy and craving of sweets, poor response to exercise. We need to do exercises that speed up our heart, aerobic type of exercises. You can do them with weights. That's what I suggest to most of the clients. We need to do strength training, we need to do flexibility, and etc. When you overdo on fats and proteins, the body becomes sluggish and the response to exercise is very poor. We need a lot of hydration to fix the nutrition in order to exercise correctly. Then we have rapid aging. Yes, too much protein and too much fat leads to rapid aging due to hormonal dysregulation. We have blood pressure issues, of course, and adrenal fatigue, neck and shoulder problem, and we can have headache as well because of this stagnation of the fluid movements, as well as lower back pain due to rigidity, due to problems in the colon. Very often when I mention to people that they could do an enema or do colonic hydrotherapy, which I prefer to enema, because sometimes people can scratch the colon while doing the enema, and that causes a lot of pain. Yeah, I would always suggest the colonic hydrotherapy, but some people are comfortable with the enemas, and enema is also a way to release and help headache and low back pain, because emptying the colon is very crucial for the lower back pain and for the headaches. So this is from me today about nutrition, about metabolic types. If you would like me to assess your metabolic type, please get in touch with me. You know how to do it. Below there are always either link if you're on YouTube or Instagram, or in my Facebook group, Eliminate a Chronic Health Condition. You know how to get in touch with me. My name is Mariya Taneva, and my phone is 778-779-1203, and you can find me on WhatsApp, Telegram, Messenger, and everywhere if you would like to discuss your health issues with me. Thank you for listening.
Leave a question or comment and we'll be glad to answer. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.